Good afternoon. I'm Anita Walker, Executive Director of the Mass Cultural Council, and welcome to our Culture Chat on this Friday. We are so delighted to have with us today Margaret Keller, who is the head of CATA out in the Berkshires. And I have to tell you, I've said this before. In fact, I say this at every one of our Culture Chats. We want this to be a little bright ray of sunshine in a gloomy day, a little nice, cool drink of water in the afternoon to get you through the day. And that is what CATA always is for me. You spark joy. Honestly, Margaret, every time I get a chance to talk to you and every time I get to experience what you're doing out at CATA. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So for those who may not be familiar with your organization, tell us about CATA.
Yes. So we are a nonprofit arts organization that is specifically focused on people with disabilities. We nurture and celebrate the creativity of people with disabilities, focusing especially on people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. We work with 800 artists with disabilities across Berkshire County and even across the border a little bit into Columbia County, New York, and in multiple art forms, over 12 different art forms. The core piece of our work is intensive weekly workshops that we offer our trained professional arts faculty lead these workshops at CATA and also in residences, day habilitation programs, and schools all across our community. And then we share the incredible creativity of our CATA artists with our wider community in performance, art exhibits, and readings, working in partnership with cultural organizations across the Berkshires.
How long has CATA been around? Decades?
26 and a half, 27 years.
Yeah, I thought you were just past like a quarter century anniversary or something like
That's
that.
right.
And you can just see by the looks on the faces in the pictures. I mean, that's authentic joy. That wasn't smile for the camera.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And if you could see our audiences, you'd see the same smiles.
So we're going to continue the conversation, but before we move on, I see that we have people joining us, listening in, and I would like to extol you to do more than just listen. There's a little button down there at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and we would love for you to join us in the conversation. Send us a comment, send us a question, share a story, tell us what you think about what you're hearing. We really want to make sure that this is thoroughly interactive from everybody who has joined on with the chat today. So thank you very much for being with us. So Margaret, needless to say, coronavirus suddenly changed everybody's world, and it changed yours as well. Talk about like your first thoughts when you found out, oh my gosh, we can't open our doors, and this is such an important place for the artists who come to your facility.
Yes, and I'll say those early days, it was surreal for everyone. It felt particularly surreal for us. We had literally just moved to a beautiful, brand new, fully accessible home that, as you know, had been in the works for a good 2 years. And we had been so focused on moving into our new home and opening the doors and welcoming our CATA artists and our community into that new space. We had just moved. We had 2 glorious days.
2 days. Just
2 days. 2 days, 2 glorious, glorious days of programs where we were welcoming our artists, their families, their caregivers into our new space and launching workshops for the first time in a home of our own. So it was this very exciting time, but it was literally on about day 3 that we started to feel everything shifting. And I think in the world of disability, that shift began to happen maybe a week or so before the wider community. But we began, our phone began ringing off the hook, and we also began reaching out in a really intense way to all of our 50 program partners to get a better understanding of how the virus was already beginning to change their world. And I will say that that was That was a pretty extreme situation. Many of the artists that we serve are in a vulnerable and high risk group. Um, and our partners, our program partners, were, as we all were dealing with very incomplete, sometimes very conflicting information in a world where they were trying to keep everybody safe. And I have to say that their response was absolutely heroic. They were all working very much on the front line to protect our CATA artists and people with disabilities across our community. And they moved so quickly, even before information was really readily available, to take concrete steps. But of course, some of those concrete steps meant pulling back from any kind of social interaction. So we began seeing that in our world, I think a week before maybe everyone else in Massachusetts began seeing that in all of our everyday worlds.
I can't imagine how difficult that was, to know how powerful and important the work with the artist is, especially in difficult times, and then to know that they could not come into this beautiful new place and participate. So how have you pivoted? We're all pivoting. We're
Yeah.
the master of the pivot now. How have you pivoted?
Yeah. We began that pivot quite quickly because we realized early on that however long this period lasted for all of us, this period of social distancing, it was going to last longer for our artists because they were more vulnerable to the risks of coronavirus. So we knew fairly early on that that pivot was critical for us. And we began putting the pieces in place to launch virtual workshops. So everything that we have been accustomed to doing in person and face-to-face, we have been figuring out how to do in this new online virtual world. So over the last month, we have launched virtual CATA workshops across multiple genres. We're now providing them in dance, and you can see an example of one of our dance workshops. Here we're providing them in world music and drumming, visual arts and painting, yoga, photography, singing. We've got creative writing, juggling, and theater and acting also on the docket now as well. So it's multiple art forms to artists all across our community.
This image we're seeing now, not everybody has the paints and the paintbrushes and all the equipment they need at home. So you're taking care of that too.
Exactly. So these are our art care packages that we're sending out to our CATA artists in residences across our community, making sure that people have access to professional quality art supplies. I will say we've had a couple of really wonderful workshops that have been deliberately focused on materials that would be common household materials. So we've had both visual arts and painting workshops that are working with what people might have on hand at home.
For example?
It can be anything from simple paper to materials that people can fish out of the recycling bin and work with. We had a wonderful drumming workshop that was focused, typically our drumming workshops are using these absolutely gorgeous West African drums. Most people do not have those at home. So we've been encouraging them to find materials around their household that they can use for percussion. So, and we had actually our faculty artists do a kind of mini workshop just on how to find materials and what different sounds different yogurt containers might make. What you can use as drumsticks, what you can use as a drum in this particular moment. So it's been fun to get creative. We are an arts organization, so we should be experts at getting creative in moments like these. But then it's also been really important for us where we can to share professional quality art supplies so that our artists can really engage at the level that they're used to engaging with the arts.
We have our first question from an anonymous attendee today. What digital platforms have you found to stay connected? How have you remained connected with traditionally high touch folks?
Yeah, it's such a great question because, our programs have by design always been very high touch. They have always by design been in person and face to face. And I think if you asked us 6 weeks ago, we would have said that is integral to what we provide. We have got to be in the room with folks to provide these experiences. But necessity truly is the mother of invention. And again, as an arts organization, it's really incumbent upon us to get creative. And when face-to-face is not safe, we have to find other ways. So we've been looking at other platforms, and I would say that we're continuing to research and expand our offerings every week. But right now, I would say our offerings really fall into 3 different categories. One is a come one, come all experience that is designed for as many people as possible. There is no limit on the number of people that can participate. And those, by and large, have been happening through Facebook Live. Anybody that has access to a Facebook account can jump on, and we're not limited to the number of people that can participate. So dance, for instance, has been a great medium for Facebook Live. And we are lucky to have such incredibly talented faculty who are so good at bringing their instruction, which is tailored for people with disabilities, to that platform, to that medium. Then we've also been doing workshops that are designed to be much more intimate. So Zoom has been a really good platform for us with that. So that might be a great platform actually for dance again, but just a little bit different, but also for visual arts, for juggling, for theater. And in those cases, we're reaching out to a predefined group of CATA artists, maybe 10 or 12 people. And those experiences have been so valuable because they allow our faculty to check in a really personal way with each of our CATA artists, and for our artists to see one another and to really feel connected again to one another and to form a community together and check in on one another. And then the third platform that we've been using, some of our faculty have been making recordings that we can share on Google Classroom and in Google Meet. What we've been finding as we talk to our program partners is that some of them are having a really hard time gathering people together at the same time. So for instance, some of our school partners, it's been really challenging to find a single time during the day when they can bring together all of the students with disabilities that are participating in a particular program. So what we found most successful there is that if we can record that content, still personalize it and tailor it for that particular group of students, but record it and make it available through the platforms that the teachers are already using, that's the most successful way to reach that group. So it has depended upon the art form, it's depended upon the particular group of people that we're trying to reach, and our goal has been to be as inclusive as possible in this moment and reach as many people as possible.
One of the hallmarks of CATA is the large number of partners that you work with throughout the communities, and as well as your relationship with the personal caregivers for a number of the artists that you work with. How have those relationships changed, been enhanced, been more important than ever?
Yeah, they really have been more important than ever because this, the scope of this pivot is sometimes hard to convey what it means to completely reinvent your programs. It's not just the platform, it's everything about how we do what we do that has had to change in this moment. And I think that communication with our partners has been fundamental. It always is, but in this moment when everything is changing, we have really had to have those close relationships to fully understand the level of challenges, the depth of challenges that our partners are facing in this moment, that our families are facing in this moment, that our CATA artists are facing in this moment, so that we could create programs that can be as successful as possible. So we've had to have those conversations in a really ongoing way to find out, sometimes understanding which residences have been quarantined. That's really important information to know right now, where there has been someone sick in a residence and where people need an extra TLC, right? And the powerful role that the arts play in these moments, I think, can just not be emphasized enough.
I think we're getting really just the tip of the iceberg of the pivot, because you're doing all this again over Zoom and over phone conversations and over text, and not having a chance to, all right, let's all get down in the conference room and figure out how we're going to solve this unprecedented problem. So it's really multifaceted. The number of problems you have to solve and things you have to understand, with the number of partners you're working with a new technology that, quite frankly, none of us have ever used as much ever before, or at all before.
Yeah, and I think that's important to underline too, is that this is a difficult period, but it's a period of experimentation. And as arts organizations, I think we have to embrace that. And whatever perfectionist tendencies we may, secretly harbor, we have to kind of shed those and leave those at the door and recognize that our task right now is to invent, it's to adapt, and it's to experiment. And when you're truly engaging in that kind of work, it's not going to be perfect every time, but you learn in the doing. And we are very much learning in the doing. And I think every week we learn a little more, and that helps us hone and shape and tweak and reinvent the following week. But that has to be part of this process for all of us.
There are no best practices that have been written. We're writing them right now. You're writing them right now. And coming out the other end of us, hopefully we will capture this all and have it to share. I want to just take a moment to remind others who are on this chat with us, and I know you're there, to don't forget that little QA button down at the bottom of your laptop, and send us some comments and some questions. And I'm actually going to call somebody out, because I know Charles Baldwin is there, because Carmen told me you are there, Charles. So I want you to just get on that Q&A button, write us a little note, and make us a little comment, or ask us a question, or remind us to talk about something we've forgotten. But in the meantime, you have a gala coming up. Now, I didn't even get into the issues which everybody knows about, that, the whole income stream and the revenue, model for you and everybody else is kind of out the window right now, but you still need to raise money to do the work. I mean, the work that you're doing, the extraordinary work, isn't free to you, to your organization. So you still need to raise money, and you're still having a gala. How are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah. And that was a decision that we had to make pretty early on, because our gala was scheduled for May 9th. And as you know, all of the plans are put in place for that, a year or more in advance. So that was a decision we had to make really mid-March. And we did decide to go forward with the gala in a reinvented fashion for two reasons. I mean, the first is, for us, our gala is really very mission focused. It's one of the central moments where we are sharing the artistry of people with disabilities with our wider community. And that's so knit into who we are. And it's so important for all of our CATA artists, and I think really for our wider community, that we did not want to sacrifice on that front. We wanted to have a moment where we could really shine a spotlight on the creativity of people with disabilities for our larger community. So we started with that premise. And then, of course, the second reason, as you have said so well, is that the funding that the gala provides to support our year-round programs is utterly essential. In the best of years, it is absolutely essential to our business model. We cannot do what we do without those generous donations. And this year, I would say, with the challenges being even more apparent, and frankly, with the demand for our programs increasing in this moment, we needed to do the gala even more. So yes, we have reinvented the gala as well, and it is now a virtual gala. We did a lot of research on platforms, and we have ended up moving forward with Mobile Cause as our platform. And the nice thing about this is that from the standpoint of our community, all the people who are attending the event, because we still very much want it to feel like and be an event on May 9th, everything happens through one website. And it's essentially, you know, an offshoot of our CATA website. So right now you can go to that website to RSVP or to donate or to read about what will happen at the virtual gala. And at the actual gala itself on Saturday, May 9th, you will be able to do all of that and actually attend the gala, watch our content through that same site.
And in the chat box, we are putting links so you can go there and get yourself all signed up. Now, Charles has joined us. Thank you, Charles. And he wrote on our Q&A, PACE has been mentioned, that check-in to ground ourselves. How do you imagine work-life sustainability when you think about our traditional not-for-profit multitasking, do-it-all personalities? And you did mention perfectionism, and, you know, we're going to have to, you know, be a little more forgiving as we learn along the way. But, and I know Charles must be thinking, as I am, and as everybody is, work-life balance when it's all in the same chair, the same desk in the same room.
Yes, yeah, and I am speaking to you, you know, with a background that looks very polished, but what you can't see is what's in front of me on my table, which in addition to all of my work things and my husband's work things, also includes all of my kids' schoolwork and some Lego projects and a few other things. So yes, everything is all knit together right now, isn't it? Charles knows many of my staff at CATA quite well, and knows I am so lucky because CATA has just an absolutely amazing staff, and they are thinking so creatively right now and working so hard. So this is a moment, I would say, where the PACE part is maybe not the piece we've figured out right now, because we have a deadline for the virtual gala, which is May 9th, and also because it has been so important to all of us to do as much as we can in a pretty quick turnaround, because we are seeing every conversation that we have with a CATA artist, every conversation that we have with a program partner, for us underscores how much they need the arts right now. And that has been such a motivation for us to provide these virtual programs, as many as we can, and to launch them as quickly as we can. I think the social isolation piece is something that deserves mention. I think that's been difficult for all of us, but for people with disabilities, that has really taken its toll. The loss of everyday connection, the loss of routines. And I think that is a place where art making and creativity are so essential right now. The arts remind us of who we are outside of this crisis, outside of quarantine. And I think we need that connection to who we are as human beings. We need that connection to each other desperately right now. And every conversation we have underscores that. And that has been such motivation for us in this moment.
We have another comment from someone both of us know, Michael Abraham at the Mass Cultural Council, who writes, "Love CATA!" ! How have you included accessibility in your gala website planning and implementation? And how will you bring in folks with visual or audio disabilities into that digital platform?
It's such a great question. We are working on that. And one of the things that we've been frustrated with is that piece has been harder to do than we would like. There are some tools out there, and we're engaged in that research, but some of our initial experiments with some of those tools have been, you know, less than ideal. For the gala itself, though, I will say that we absolutely plan on captioning We think that's essential. We also, those of you who have been to the gala before know that we have an amazing ASL interpreter who joins us every year and adds her own artistry to the work of our artists, and we will be working with her again this year. So we're looking at different ways that we can layer those critical accessibility pieces into the gala and also into all of our workshops as well, because that's for us especially, for everyone, it's a critical question, and for us especially.
You know, you talk about learning in real time, and what we're finding is what we don't know and what we don't have, and the shortcomings of technology now that we've decided to leap into the deep end of it, hopefully will help software engineers and whoever designs websites and so forth realize what's missing in terms of the accessibility piece. It's more than just a translator, or there's a lot more to it than that.
Exactly, exactly.
Can you share with us a story or two that really brings it home into one or two of the artists that you work with on a regular basis who have had to, like all of us, navigate this difficult time, the anxiety that everybody feels, the separation from their friends and the safe place that they love to go to at CATA, and how the arts and their continued ability to participate and be creative has meant a lot?
Yeah. Well, I think back to one of the first workshops that we did as we were just getting going was a singing workshop. And as part of the vocal warm-up, our faculty artist leading that class, Terrence, who was called Mr. T, by the way, by some of our CATA artists, he was leading a vocal warm-up, and looking at all of the faces gathered together around Zoom, he saw that one of our artists was there who has just this wonderfully distinctive laugh. You know, a laugh that you can hear if you're on the street a block away and Kathy laughs, you will hear it. And so he modeled the vocal, and everyone in that Zoom workshop knows Kathy and has heard that wonderful laugh. And this was, you know, a day when I think everybody needed a little injection of joy into their lives. So he modeled the vocal warm-up on Kathy's laugh, and everyone did the you know, and by the end of it, everyone was just in hysterics. And it was such a great moment as a preface to a workshop where everyone was going to get a chance to express themselves and share their own creativity. But it was just a moment that reminded everyone of who they were and who they were connected to in the class. And it was a day when I think everybody needed a laugh. So that's a great story for me, because it so encapsulates what other parts of ourselves as human beings we access when we allow ourselves to be creative in a dark moment in time, what it means to get yourself into the right frame of mind to make and to create and to be with other people.
As we look toward getting to the other side of this, and it will come, it will, and to your point, more slowly for some of our organizations than others. And clearly, in your case, in the case of CATA and the artists that you work with, I think there will be great care in loosening up restrictions on social distancing and so forth. But are there things that you've discovered, sort of accidental delightful surprises, that the pivot and the reinvention and the creative work that you've done as a team at CATA has given you maybe a new tool for the future?
Yeah, I think that this whole question of how we use technology going forward is a really interesting one, because as I said, we would have eschewed it before, 6 weeks ago, and now we are embracing it. And you know that in the Berkshires, geography can be quite an impediment to a lot. And it is hard to gather people. We're working across 920 square miles of Berkshire County, where it can take, 2 hours to go from one end to the other. So it's hard sometimes to physically gather people who are separated by geography. And we can do it now through technology in a way that would have actually been more difficult in person. So So that is something. I will also say that, you know, we've had this crazy weather in the Berkshires over the last couple of weeks. And there was one day last week where the snow was just pouring from the sky. And, you know, before I had kind of acclimated myself, when I first woke up in the morning, bleary eyed, I was thinking, oh, it's a CATA snow day. Nobody's going to be able to. And then I thought, no, we can still do programs. Yeah. So there, you know, there are moments.
I think you've come up with a new slogan, you know, the pandemic where every day is a snow day.
Oh.
See, you gave us a laugh. I knew you would do it, Margaret. I knew you would do it no matter what. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, for sharing your story, and keep in touch. Let us know how things go, because we're all learning from each other, and your work is so incredibly important. So thank you for being with us on the Culture Chat.
Oh, thank you, Anita, and thanks for the work that all of you at Mass Cultural Council that work has been so important for us in helping us feel grounded and inspired and motivated over the last few weeks.
Stay well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.